Hello and welcome to ARIRANG News. It's Wednesday, October 15th here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Laah Hyun-kyung. We begin at the truce village of Panmunjom this afternoon, where high-level military talks between the two Koreas have taken place. The South Korean government says it has nothing to confirm at this point, but sources say the two are discussing ways to, or have discussed ways to ease cross-border tensions. Hwang Sung-hee has our top story.
The two Koreas are reportedly holding a round of military talks behind closed doors on this Wednesday. Citing senior government officials and lawmakers, local media outlets are reporting that a meeting between general-level officers is underway at the truce village of Panmunjom in an effort to ease military tensions at the border. South Korea's Unification Ministry declined to confirm the reports. Last week, South and North Korean patrol boats exchanged fire after a North Korean vessel crossed the de facto maritime border in the West Sea. 3 days later, the two Koreas exchanged gunfire across their shared border after the North fired at South Korean balloons carrying anti-Pyongyang leaflets. Up for discussion in today's talks are the recent clashes and ways to prevent them moving forward. A government source said the meeting was suggested by Pyongyang following last week's incident in the West Sea. The Unification Ministry also declined to comment on whether it had proposed a date to North Korea for their planned high-level talks. The two sides earlier agreed to hold the meeting sometime in late October or early November. In a column on Wednesday, North Korea's state-run Nodongshinmun newspaper called on South Korea to halt all military hostilities to create a mood for improving cross-border ties. The newspaper said banning anti-Pyongyang leaflets would be a first step, something the South Korean government has repeatedly said it will not do. Hwang Sung-hee, ARIRANG News.
And we are just getting reports that the South Korea's National Defense Ministry did say and confirm that the two sides did meet, and we will have more details on our later newscast. Now, moving on, South Korea's ruling party leader Kim Moosung sat down with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing. Kim says the Chinese leader reaffirmed his stance that Pyongyang's nuclear ambitions are unacceptable. Our Shin Se-min has the details.
Chinese President Xi Jinping wants to revive the long-stalled six-party talks as soon as possible. In a meeting with the leader of South Korea's ruling Saenuri Party, Kim Moosung, in Beijing on Tuesday, President Xi said that while the talks haven't been held for 6 years, they still represent, quote, optimum process to persuade North Korea to give up its nuclear ambitions. The talks that involve the two Koreas, the U.S., China, Japan, and Russia, have been stalled since late 2008 when Pyongyang walked away from the negotiating table.
President Xi said the six-party talks could provide a sustainable, effective, and irreversible way of denuclearizing the North.
Kim told reporters that Xi reiterated the importance of dialogue and said the recent surprise visit to South Korea by a high-level North Korean delegation marked a positive step forward for relations of the two Koreas. The delegation was led by the regime's second most powerful man, Hwang Sung-hee. Ahead of his meeting with President Xi, Korea's ruling party chief met with Wang Jia-rui, the director of the International Department of the Communist Party of China's Central Committee.
South Korea has set a fine example on how to modernize. It's something we can learn from. Specifically, South Korea has a major influence in economic and cultural fields.
Wrapping up their discussions, the two pledged to widen their partnership by coordinating policies. They also agreed to hold regular talks between the ruling parties of the two countries. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
President Park Geunhye has arrived in Italy to attend a biannual meeting between Asian and European leaders. During her 5-day trip, she will also have a chance to promote her diplomatic policies, including how to deal with North Korea. ARIRANG's Choi Yu-sun, who's traveling with the president, files this report from Milan.
President Park Geunhye will attend this year's summit of the Asia-Europe meeting, better known as ASEM, starting Thursday. Here, the South Korean president plans to garner support from some 50 world leaders for her so-called Eurasia Initiative, which aims to link energy and logistics infrastructure across the continent to lay the foundation for new growth opportunities in both Asia and Europe. And by having North Korea participate in the initiative, President Park anticipates the reclusive regime will eventually open up to the world, end nuclear development, and thereby set the stage for a peaceful unification of the peninsula. Also at the two-day summit, the Korean leader will talk about her country's future contributions as a key middle power in politics, the economy, society, and culture. Ahead of the global gathering, President Park will meet with Korean and Italian business leaders to pledge support for stronger economic cooperation between the two sides. She will hold a luncheon with Korean residents in Italy to emphasize how they can better bridge the two sides, reflecting on Seoul and Rome's 130 years of diplomatic relations this year. On the sidelines of the ASEM summit, President Park is scheduled to meet several world leaders, including Chinese Premier Li Keqiang. During that meeting, the South Korean president will likely highlight China's role in persuading North Korea to lay down its nuclear arms and to revive dialogue with the international community. Choi Yu-sun, ARIRANG News, Milan. As you just saw, Korea's central bank has cut its key rate to a record low of 2% to give a much-needed boost to the sluggish economy. It has also lowered the economic outlook for the year to 3.5%, citing a slumping investment in plant and equipment as well as not yet bullish business sentiment. Our Hwang Ji-hye has more.
The Bank of Korea is walking in step with the government to spur growth in the wobbly economy. It lowered its key interest rate by 0.25 of a percentage point to 2% following its monthly monetary policy meeting on Wednesday. It's the second rate cut in 3 months and marks a drop to a low not seen since the height of the global financial crisis in 2009. BOK Governor Lee Ju-yeol cited the sagging economic sentiment for the rate cut, saying the 2% key rate should help the domestic economy gain momentum. He also said the rate cut comes from weaker than expected inflationary pressure. Korea's inflation rate remained in the 1% range for the 23rd straight month in September. The central bank's concerns over the feeble pace of recovery were also reflected in its new growth forecast. It cut this year's projection by 0.3 percentage points to 3.5% and next year's by 0.1 percentage point to 3.9%. There are concerns over massive capital outflows, however, in the face of the historically low key rate and possible monetary tightening by the U.S. Federal Reserve. Korea's central bank also faces mounting criticism over its independence as recent remarks from the country's finance minister pressured the central bank to cut the key rate. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
Starting today, it will be easier for foreign entities to receive benefits from the Korean government when bringing their businesses into Korea. This is in line with President Park Geun-hye's vision of elevating the nation's reputation as a global hub that's worth investing in. Song Ji-sun takes a look at some of these legal revisions.
Challenging Singapore, Shanghai, and other major cities in Asia for the regional headquarters of multinational companies. That's Seoul's aim and the sole purpose of a revision to Korea's Foreign Investment Promotion Act, which goes into effect on Wednesday. Seoul will now acknowledge the branch of a global mother company as a regional headquarters if it has an average revenue of $3 billion over the past 5 years, if they employ more than 10 people here, and if more than half of their investment shares come from overseas. To be recognized as a research and development center, they'll need 5 permanent researchers with $100,000 in investments to receive incentives. Creating new jobs is also an important criteria in receiving government benefits. Those that hire 200 or more employees, with total investments exceeding $2.5 million, will get a 100% reduction in rent at government-run foreign investment complexes. Before this revision, foreign manufacturers needed to invest $5 million to receive a 75% reduction. Foreign direct investment has hit a record high this year, logging $15 billion in the third quarter, up about 40% from the same period last year. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy says attracting high value-added foreign investment is crucial to realizing the nation's potential economic growth. 송지선, ARIRANG News.
Korea's import prices fell for the 7th consecutive month last month on weakening oil prices. The Bank of Korea says the import price index stood at 93 in September, the lowest level in 5.5 years. The central bank explained that the local currency weakened against the greenback by 0.8% in September from a month earlier, but the price of Dubai crude shed more than 5%, dragging overall import prices down. In the jobs market, Korea's unemployment rate inched down in September from August, but the pace of job creation slowed to a 3-month low. Statistics Korea says the jobless rate stood at 3.2% last month, edging down 0.1 percentage point from the previous month. Some 450,000 new jobs were created in September, up around 2% on year, bringing Korea's employment rate to 61%, up 0.4 percentage points from August. In tech news, one crucial element that needs solving in order for companies to come up with innovative gadgets is developing the batteries that power them. Korean manufacturers are working on new types of batteries that bend, flex, and even roll. Ji Myung-gil has this report.
Samsung SDI has developed the world's first bendable and rollable batteries that can be integrated into smart wristband watches.
We conducted thousands of bending tests, and there was no performance degradation in the charging capacity of the batteries.
Samsung SDI also unveiled pin batteries that are identical in size to a drug capsule at just 3.6 millimeters in diameter. They can be used in a variety of wearable devices that require ultra-small batteries. Not to be outdone, LG Chem introduced cable batteries, which can be used to light up OLED monitors and small display panels. They can be bent and twisted and are also waterproof.
Cable batteries are suitable for powering wearable devices such as Bluetooth earphones, headphones, and can even be applied to various clothing materials.
Both companies are also focusing on large-sized batteries, which can be used in electric vehicles. They say mass production on those will begin in the next few years. Ji Myung-gil, ARIRANG News.
Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg is in the second day of his trip to Korea. Samsung insiders say Zuckerberg and some 40 Facebook board members, including Chief Operating Officer Sheryl Sandberg, are visiting Samsung's key factory complex in the city of Suwon, south of Seoul, today. Zuckerberg met with Samsung Electronics Vice Chairman Lee Jae-yong on Tuesday for 2 hours over dinner. No details have been provided officially about the meeting, but industry watchers say they may have exchanged ideas on a smartphone collaboration. The two are reportedly planning on holding another meeting today. In other news, the government has expanded its ban of products made by Korea's #1 cereal maker, Dongsuh Food. The Food Ministry extended its list of potentially contaminated products by 3. That's up from the previous one after inspecting the company's factory. Now, the ministry had earlier suspended sales of its popular cereal brand, Post Almond Flakes. Dongsuh Food is accused of recycling cereal contaminated with E. coli in new products, even after they were aware of the problem.
Bringing you the fresh updates from stories breaking in Korea and abroad. We give you a bigger and better picture of the world. Join Laah Hyun-kyung live from Seoul. Every weekday, only on ARIRANG.
The not-so-warm bilateral relations between Korea and Japan may be heading into an even frostier zone. Instead of showing remorse for its sexual enslavement of women before and during World War II, Tokyo keeps on saying it had done nothing wrong. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
The frosty ties between Korea and Japan are unlikely to thaw anytime soon. The Japanese government says it will actively promote that Japan has committed no sins as it pertains to the forced sexual enslavement of women during wartime. This in reaction to the Asahi Shimbun newspaper, which in early August retracted what it called erroneous articles published in the 80s and 90s about the sexual slavery issue. In a written statement, the Japanese government said it will strengthen foreign communications so that their stance and handling of affairs receives a fair assessment by the international community. That echoes what the Japanese Prime Minister has said.
Due to false reports by the Asahi Shimbun, we must work to recover Japan's honor.
Adding fuel to the fire, a top Japanese cabinet official who has spearheaded efforts to deny that Japan sexually enslaved women during World War II says she will visit a controversial war shrine that honors A-class war criminals.
When time allows, I'll visit the Yasukuni Shrine.
Japan's chief cabinet secretary Yoshida Suga said there's nothing wrong with paying respect to those who lost their lives while fighting for the country. The Japanese Foreign Ministry also recently said it will step up its false claims to Korea's easternmost Dokdo Island. And with Korea demanding that Japan acknowledge and show sincerity about its historical wrongdoings, it seems highly unlikely that summit talks will be held anytime soon with their stances on diverging paths. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
The World Health Organization projects that there could be between 5,000 and 10,000 new cases of Ebola per week by the start of December. That's 10 times the current rate. WHO Assistant Director General Bruce Aylward says the group's goal is to logistically organize an Ebola response that could properly manage 70% of those cases by then. Now, this comes as doctors in Germany confirmed that a UN medical official originally from Sudan passed away Monday night despite receiving what they called intensive medical measures. The 56-year-old man had contracted Ebola while volunteering in Liberia. He was at the German clinic for 4 days and had received an experimental drug as well. Hong Kong police have cleared out a tunnel outside the city government headquarters that had been barricaded by pro-democracy protesters the night before. The violent confrontations reignited early this morning as police arrested 45 people for illegal assembly at Lung Wo Road, an important east-west artery in Admiralty. Police have been stepping up their offenses to clear the city's roads that have been blocked for more than 2 weeks now, using pepper spray and batons to disperse the protesters. Demonstrators have been demanding full democracy for the former British colony in the 2017 chief executive elections. And shifting gears, obesity is a serious problem throughout much of the world. That said, reports show that Korea's overall obesity rate among young boys in particular is increasing at a worrying pace, now surpassing the OECD average. Son Jung-in has this story.
8-year-old Son Su-min is heavier than most of his classmates. After a body checkup, his parents were told he has a body fat ratio twice the average for a boy his age. Like many kids in Korea, Su-min likes to tuck into calorie and carbohydrate-rich food like white rice, red meat, and fast food, and doesn't get enough exercise.
I like snacks and drinks. I like soda like Coke.
His mother wasn't aware of the consequences and just gave him whatever he asked for.
I heard people say that fat children usually eat up being taller as adults.
The problem has worsened in recent years. In Korea, 1 in 4 boys aged 5 to 17 are obese, which is slightly higher than the OECD average. What's more concerning is that well over half of those boys remain obese into adulthood and are at higher risk of becoming morbidly obese. Obesity can lead to a host of other health issues like diabetes, high blood pressure, and it can also increase the chance of cerebrovascular disease at a young age.
Obesity is known to cause cancer, including colorectal cancer, breast cancer, as well as asthma, fatty liver, and other liver disorders.
It also incurs great social costs in terms of medical expenses and loss of production. According to recent data, the socio-economic cost stemming from child obesity in Korea amounts to $1.3 billion each year. Child and teenage obesity not only affects the individual, but their family, school, and the community as a whole. Experts advise parents to create a friendly but firm atmosphere for their children and encourage them to exercise and eat fresh fruit and vegetables to maintain a healthier lifestyle. 손정인, 아리랑 뉴스.
A one-of-a-kind gilt bronze statue was recently returned to Korea and is now on display for the first time. Our Im Geunhye takes us to the exhibition. Take a look.
Just this week, the National Museum of Korea unveiled a gilt bronze statue of Buddha that dates back to the late 8th or early 9th century, under the unified Silla era. And for the first time ever, this rare treasure is being put on public display. At 30 centimeters tall, the statue of Buddha resonates stylistic traits of that period, such as flat features and a big face, as well as a unique design, making this work truly one of a kind.
There are jewels embedded within the halo of the figure, making this one of only 2 in the world and possibly the only one with jewels embedded in the base as well.
Another treasure recently returned to the nation is now making its first public debut as well. The rare Goryeo Dynasty lacquered suture box is thought to be one of only 9 authentic specimens left in the world. With over 450 patterns of peonies, turtles, and other shapes, the delicate wooden box is now part of the new exhibition, showcasing a compilation of prized treasures recently returned to Korea, including an illustration of the historical Battle of Noryang, the final battle site of Korea's legendary Admiral Lee Sun-shin. Many of the items now on display were purchased by the museum or donated. But in the end, no price tag can match the historical value each one of these relics contains when it comes to Korea's history. Im Geunhye, ARIRANG News.
It's been another bright day for you, Seoulites. I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. We started off with a chilly morning as usual. However, temperatures have already risen to 16 degrees in the capital and are expected to top out around 20. Now for the rest of the nation, temperatures will range between the mid-teens and to the low 20s depending where you are. And it's been a sunny day with a nice breeze nationwide, and as you can see, we have mostly clear skies for now, but rain is in the forecast tomorrow starting on the west coast and to the central regions. Should start to see showers by early morning tomorrow. Now going over to our temperature readings, Seoul will peak at 20 this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will see up to 21 and 22 degrees. And moving over to other regions, Jeju Island will see up to 20 as well, while Dokdo reaches 17, while Mount Gyeongang hits at 19. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that's all we have for now. Thank you for watching. Our next newscast coming up at 6 p.m. Korea time. I'll see you then.